The field demands both patience and a lot of passion, and there will be challenging days. But every small victory with a child, every smile, and every moment of connection will really remind us why we chose this profession.
How can a set of skills lead you down the path to success? That's what we're setting out to answer on the EdUp Canada podcast. I'm your host, Michael Sangster. Join me as we unpack how leaders around the world have taken training and skills and turned that into a lasting career. Now let's learn together. Welcome to another episode of EdUp Canada, where we explore the people, programs, and stories shaping the future of Canada's most vital industries. Today, we're focusing on a sector that has an immeasurable impact: early learning and childcare. Joining us are two aspiring individuals: Stuart Bentley, president and co-founder of triOS Corporation, which oversees regulated career colleges like Eastern and triOS College, and Mimi Saleh, a dedicated early childhood education instructor at Eastern College. Together, they share how their institutions equip students with the hands-on experience and skills needed to thrive in this crucial field, one that shapes not just children, but families and entire communities. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there's a massive workforce need for the kind of graduates that come out of these programs, as more and more provinces work with the federal government to develop early childhood education centers across the country and more reasonably priced facilities for students, for young children to attend. Graduates are a crucial part of that equation. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. Maybe I'll start with you, Stuart, and give a couple of minute introduction of yourself, and then we'll answer your question.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Michael. Glad to be here today. I'm Stuart Bentley. I'm president, co-founder of triOS Corporation, now called triOS Education Group. We have schools across 3 provinces in Canada. We have Eastern College in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. We have triOS College in Ontario. And we also do online training countrywide through our Center for Distance Education division and various programs that triOS offers and Eastern offers right across the country. So we are a national organization. I have about 900 employees and have been in the education space for 30 plus years.
So let's dive right in. I'm going to come back to the center on distance education and the number of employees and the economic impact, but let's dive right into your Eastern College's early childhood education program. From my understanding, from what I toured your institution, it emphasizes hands-on training with about 500 hours of practical experience. So I'd ask you, why is this experiential learning so critical for students, and how does it translate to success in real-world childcare settings?
I mean, children are the future of our country, and in order to support them effectively, we believe that a combination of remote and hands-on learning with lots of practical experience is critical to training the teachers to be effective in dealing with the students. It's one thing to read about something in a book or hear from an instructor, but it's another thing when you're actually demonstrating those skills with children of multiple ages, as the needs of are very different depending on their age groups. So we're really focused on the practical aspect of this program and ensuring that our students are equipped and ready to hit the workforce upon graduation.
So Mimi, let's move over to you, but I'm going to ask you a bit of a curveball here. You teach the program. Talk to me about what Stuart was talking about, experiential learning. What does that mean? Where do they get that experience? It's not just in the classroom. Tell me about an average student and what they go through one of your programs, what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, it's not only in the classroom, it's also outside of the classroom. We started off all in the classroom talking about real life scenarios, things that I've experienced in the field. I've been in the field for almost 18 years now, working in all sorts of classrooms and schools. So I use real life examples of things that I've gone through, that I've experienced myself. while working with children, families, different members of the communities. I bring it back to our online family, ECE family in the classroom, and we talk about it. What would we do in those scenarios? Now, we talk about all these wonderful things, we experience it, we learn from it, but then they get to go out to their field placement and put it into practice. And like you said, it's 500 hours. We actually break it down into 3 blocks, one being an infant toddler block, one being a preschool block, and the last one a school age block. So they get to experience all the different age groups and work with each of those age groups, with their families, with the teachers. They have mentors in the classrooms. They're shadowing, learning from.
They're interacting with parents, I assume, at some level too.
They are, that's correct.
And those skills they're getting, those are hard skills that they can take to work and soft skills they can take to when they leave your program to go right to work.
That's right. Yes.
So why are you so passionate about this sector? Why do you love doing this work so much? Is there a moment in time that impacted you, that made you what you are?
So, my passion for early childhood education comes from the profound impact that we as educators have on the children's lives. Knowing that we contribute to the foundational years of a child's growth is incredibly fulfilling. And I always, always, always emphasize to my students that ECE isn't just about teaching, it's about shaping the futures, about fostering emotional security and creating environments where children can feel confident to explore, learn, and express themselves. So, with that being said, a moment that I can think of that really deeply impacted me as an educator was when a former student of mine who was initially unsure of the path of in ECE returned after her first block during her field placement, and she shared how she had helped a child overcome social anxiety and become more engaged in the classroom. Just seeing the joy in her eyes and hearing how she used the strategies we discussed in class solidified the importance of what we do. It's moments like these that really remind me why this field is so rewarding and that the seeds that we plant in our students' learning truly bears fruit.
I'm going to shift over to you, Stuart, because we're talking about the personal impact Mimi can have as an instructor. No business starts with 900 employees. You start and you work your way up to that. How do you keep a close-knit team when you're in 3 different provinces and an online learning program running across Canada? How do you keep that close-knit team to keep that personal touch that someone like Mimi has working with students, sorry?
Yeah, there's multiple initiatives that we do as a core of our business. I mean, our mission is to help students become successful graduates. And everything we do as an organization surrounds the mission of the company. So we're communicating on a regular basis through various medium, from webinars and company meetings and in-person meetings with our staff, conference calls, Teams meetings. There's a high level of interaction between the administrative side of the organization and the instructor side of our organization. So we know students, we've met them, we've talked to them, we've shaken their hands on graduation, and prior to that, many times in the classroom while they're in school. So it's just part of our DNA.
It's your people. I've had the pleasure of getting to know some of your people, and it is also your people, right? You've worked really hard to build up an infrastructure of quality people.
Yeah, for sure. We spend a lot of time in professional development with our team, in hiring for the right qualities. When I talk to students, one of the things they often say is it was the friendliest school of all the schools that I visited, and that starts at reception and works its way through every interaction with every different person within the organization. And we try to celebrate that as often as we can and share the best practices with our other locations.
You and I have had the pleasure of getting to know each other. Stuart used to be on our board of directors and is coming back on soon. What makes Eastern triOS special? You know, there's some great colleges with 40 employees, with 20 employees, with 10 employees out there that are doing the same kind of training. What makes triOS and Eastern special as well?
I mean, I think the main thing is taking the small family feel of a smaller organization and finding ways to expand that across all of your locations. And we've spent a lot of time trying to build that family nature. There's often these shows on TV where the undercover boss, there is absolutely no way that Frank or I, my business partner Frank, could ever participate in an undercover boss exercise because we are front and center. People know us, they see us, we talk to them, and try and share the values that we've created as an organization. So, I think that goes a long way, and ensuring that our management team is supportive of the direction that we set for the organization, and treats people with respect. I think it's an incredible part of the organization.
Well, Frank would have a tough time at his height being an undercover boss because he'd show up as soon as he walked in the front door. Mimi, let's go back to the program that you specifically teach. Understanding the developmental stages of young children is key to early learning. Early learning is such an important part of our economic development to make sure we get our young learners off to a good start. So how do you ensure students not only master the theory, but also develop the emotional intelligence needed to support children when they leave the program and graduate?
Absolutely. Mastering theory, I think, is extremely essential, but emotional intelligence is just as equally critical in the field of early childhood education. So I make sure that my students understand the developmental stages by incorporating reflective practices and self awareness into our learning. We discuss scenarios, like I said, where they need to apply empathy, patience, and understanding, emphasizing that every child really develops at their own pace and their own way. So I encourage my students to engage in role play exercises that stimulate real life interactions with children, challenging them to use not only their knowledge, but also their emotional insight. And this helps them to build skills, the skills that to recognize children's emotional cues and respond in ways that foster trust, security, and positive development. And in addition, during practical placements, I really mentor and advise the students to observe not just behaviors, but also the emotional undercurrents that really drive those behaviors. Because, like I always tell them, all behavior is communication. And this reflective practice really helps them to become more attuned to children's needs, which is vital for creating supportive learning environments.
And when they go on those placements, they're working with someone who's already been in the field and graduated from a program, right? So they're getting real life skills. But more importantly, I found with our practical placements in our member colleges, it's really about someone else just watching over them and making sure they've got that empathy.
Yes, absolutely. So I always advise them to have like an ACE, like a mentor who is an early childhood educator who has been in the field, that's been working already, and experience for a minimum of 5 years, so that they gain all those extensive skills that we're looking for to have.
We're gonna wander back here to Stuart for a second to talk about a student walks in the door of triOS or Eastern College, and let's say Eastern College in Moncton, New Brunswick. What does that look like for them enrolling and getting accepted into one of your programs? What's that process like? Because I think people think you just walk in the door, sign a piece of paper, and you start, but that's not true, is it?
The amount of time it takes for somebody to take that first step and actually enroll is a journey that they've spent a bunch of time on prior to even showing up at the school, right? They've done some research, talked to friends about the different schools and the different careers, and our role when they walk in the building is to help them explore and understand their own goals for education, what type of career they're looking for. So our admissions team worked very closely with the student to talk through and ask some questions that are, self-discovering questions for the students. Once they've kind of identified and looked at a program, often we'll take them on a tour. Sometimes they'll sit in the class or audit the class for a portion of time before they enroll, just to get a feeling for that. We take them to the employment specialists that are responsible for helping them find jobs, and they talk through the employment market. Our admissions team then works with them to do all of the various admissions paperwork, and the financial aid team works with them to figure out how they can fund their education. And through a process over a little bit of time, they make the decision of whether they're going to enroll with us. So it's really important that our admissions team works closely with them to put them in the right program, right? Set them up for success.
Not every student gets enrolled, right?
That's correct.
And then talk to me about the employment part. They don't graduate and get left to their own. You work with employers that are many times involved in the practical placements as well. So I think based on my experience in the sector is there's many of the students end up being hired by the practical placements where they go work too. But talk to me a little bit about what you do to make sure those students leave with a job.
The first piece to it is giving them career strategy skills. You often hear the term, handing a person a fish versus teaching them how to fish so that they can find their own fish, and in this case, find their own job. We spent a lot of time prepping them on the skills that they need to go out into the workforce, how to interview, how to research employers, how to, do the proper cover letter / introductory emails, etc. And we have a team that works closely with the student to identify where they'd like to go on internship geographically, but also what type of company they would like to work for. And obviously in this field of early childhood education, it's the daycare centers and things like that. So our employment specialists work together with the student to place them in their practical. Often the instructors are involved in that process and guiding the students as well as to where they best fit. And then once they finish their placement, we've got, I don't know, there's 30 or 40% of students end up working for the employer they did their placement on, and the others take that practical experience that they got and work with our employment specialists to find another employer for them.
I wanted you to talk about that because I was recently at a job fair in downtown Toronto where one of our member colleges actually hosted a job fair with, I think, 30 different employers.
That's a regular practice for us.
Begging for work. The employer's begging for workers, looking for the right kind of people who are trained well. And I think that's a misconception about our sector, that we just unleash them into the streets. And in fact, we're actually doing the opposite. We're making sure they have employment before they graduate from the program.
I mean, many of the career colleges that have scale have much more extensive employment specialists and career development people than the public colleges and universities do. Like we've got in our organization, I think we have about 40 people that are dedicated to finding internship posts and jobs for our students. That's a big commitment on behalf of an organization to help students be successful.
And it's a powerful commitment when combined with the admissions process that makes sure you get the right people in the right program. So, Mimi, I'm going to come back to you and put you on the spot because you're clearly very passionate about what you do. So talk to me about, is there a mentor in your career? Is there somebody that could be around this sector, but it could be just about anything that changed your path and that you'd want them to hear you say something about them that changed who you are?
Yeah. So my mentor, I'm going to say is, it's a person in the past that's like in the, someone that we learn about who actually started many, 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 many schools. Her name is Maria Montessori. So Maria Montessori is really an extraordinary mentor figure for anyone that's in the field of early childhood education, because not just because she revolutionized the way we think about early learning, but because her principles really continue to resonate with modern educators to this day. As somebody that's deeply committed to the idea that children learn best through active, hands-on exploration for their environment, Montessori's work really reminds me that children are capable, independent learners from a very young age.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's interesting how that ties back into what you've been doing. So I'm going to put Stuart on the spot now. I know from our time together, he's got some strong people in his life. So Stuart, a mentor that changed your path of your life?
They often say people are born entrepreneurs. And when I look back at my own life, paper routes at age 7 or 8 and things like that, don't seem to exist today for young people. But I had my multiple businesses before I even graduated from high school. So a lot of self-initiative and self-taught. From a mentor perspective, there's been a few influential people that have shared knowledge about certain aspects of business and aspects of education, but there isn't one person I can say was my guiding mentor that worked with me through the years. And I've always wished that I'd had someone like that, because it probably would have saved a lot of pain and challenges that we face as entrepreneurs. And I'm doing a lot of mentoring now with younger managers and newer employees to help them develop in their careers, because giving back is something that is really important for me, and developing the next generation of leaders within our organization.
The greatest benefit of success is having now time to do a little bit extra, right, with people, and because you've seen where you've come from. I had a paper route when I was a young kid and ended up with 3 or 4 of them by the time. It's an interesting thing. That doesn't exist anymore. That was an entrepreneurial opportunity for kids. I've never thought about that before. Up at 6:30, delivering those papers, dragging them around the neighborhood, meeting the truck when they dropped them off on the corner of the street. And I did it in Winnipeg, where that weather in January and February was not pleasant, slugging through the snow. That's a really interesting perspective. I've never thought about that before. There's less and less of those opportunities now.
In business life, I've often said that a sale is a gift until the bill is paid. And as a paper route entrepreneur, you had to go and collect the money for the, Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, etc., and work through collecting the funds to keep that business working properly. And that's a skill that is a lifelong skill that is really important in our world.
That's a little pearl of wisdom from Stuart. I had never thought about that, but you're right. I had to go with my little envelopes and collect the $3 or the $8, and people wouldn't answer the door, or they'd be away, and it created. And you had to also deal with family issues too. Someone would pass, or different things along your route that you'd have to deal with and find a way to work through those situations. It's a really interesting perspective. That may have been the best mentor you ever had to go do what you do, right? Is dealing with those individual things. Quite interesting, Stuart. I didn't see that coming. So I'm going to come back to both of you here about this early learning that is incredibly demanding. I've got a question to finish up with Stuart on after, but we'll start with you, Mimi. What advice would you give to someone starting out? What motivates you to continue doing what you do? You clearly love what you do.
I absolutely love what I do. And for those that are just starting out in early learning, my advice is to just stay curious and resilient. The field demands both patience and a lot of passion, and there will be challenging days. But every small victory with a child, every smile, and every moment of connection will really remind us why we chose this profession. So, to stay motivated, I really focus on the difference that I am making as an educator. I also focus on the long term impact that we have on children, their families, and the communities, knowing that we're really shaping the next generation of leaders and thinkers is extremely and incredibly powerful. So, as a practitioner, is a constant reminder of the ripple effect of our work that it creates.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I know, Stuart, you're very passionate about our sector and what we do. We've been through a difficult year on the reputation side because of some, I'm going to say, attacks that have gone on against our sector as it's related to international students. But as the debate continued, we were able to prove that we actually were not the problem. As I've often said in my career, and I've been around governments for 30 odd years, when the minister stands up and has a podium and a flag, you're in trouble if they're going to say something against you, because people tend to believe them. But as the facts bore out in the end, we actually weren't the problem. We did not have the mass amounts of students that we were claimed to have. You've been around this sector for quite a while. Talk to me about the quality of our education, the regulatory system that you have to go through in different provinces just to get your programs approved, get your colleges approved, and start taking in students. And why this last year, and in a way, it's been so difficult, but I would say also a little bit rewarding because we were able to punch through and convince a lot of people that, wait a second, we're needed. And you see that. You see the employers knocking on your door looking for workers. So maybe you have a little bit of go on a little rant here for me, Stuart, about what's gone on and what you're thinking.
Well, I mean, I think there is a misperception that you can just, rent a small office above a massage parlor and kick open a school. That is so far from the truth. It's unbelievable. The regulatory environment that the private colleges face in all of our provinces is a significant hurdle to get through to start up a school. So the registration process, there's bonding required to support the school if something happens with it, and allows you to train out students. The programs are approved by government, and you go through an extensive preparation process to submit a program for approval. And this stuff just doesn't show up on a street corner. This is a big investment by the colleges to get started in industry. And then along the way, there's inspections. The government has been, is in the schools. They're validating, your operational processes, your attendance records, your grades, your transcript stuff. There's a lot of work that is done to support and validate the quality of the school education and operations of a private college. So one of the things that's happened over the year is we've gotten thrown in to a blender, and everybody's been treated similarly in the process, with a lot of misinformation and a lot of big picture political headline grabbing and supporting initiatives that may not be what's on the ground and the issues on the ground. And one of the things I feel that the government, both provincial and federal, have not consulted the sector for solutions of how to ensure the quality of education occurs in the schools, and the quality of admissions processes. I think there's solutions that many of the schools can offer to government if they're willing to listen.
And you're not afraid of regulation. You look for consistency in regulation, but you're not afraid of it, are you?
No, I mean, we built up infrastructure, the fact that we have, multiple locations in multiple provinces with multiple regulatory environments. You build a resiliency and understanding of what's important in operating a good college, and have the people in place trained to support the regulatory process and get programs that are needed into the market. One of the values of the private college marketplace is our relationship with the employers. We're out visiting employers, we're listening to their employer needs, and we try to adjust our programs within the regulatory environment in order to support the needs of employers. And historically, speed to market was a real advantage for career colleges, because we could quickly take a program, get it adjusted to support the need of an employer or group of employers, say in supply chain or virtually any employment field, and get that done and approved and into the market quickly.
There's a lot of important messages in there about the regulatory regimes that we work under and the way students are treated and the way we take this stuff seriously. So I'm going to leave on a little question for both of you today. I appreciate your time and to come in here and talk about what you're doing and affecting students' lives so they can go out and affect young, early childhood students that are headed into daycare centers and childcare centers. Is there a soft skill or a hard skill that you think has made you successful? And have you developed that over time, or do you think it's something you always have? And I'll put you on the spot first, Stuart.
I think the ability to listen is an incredibly important part of interaction as a soft skill with people. It's really easy to talk, but it's a much harder skill to master, the ability to listen and think through what people are saying, and reacting to them in a way that's the way they'd like to be reacted to. And I think that's a critical skill. Some people call it emotional intelligence. The listening is a huge part of that, and being able to read the room and understand what the bigger picture issues that are going on are really important. And I think that skill is something we're teaching that to our employees. It's not innate. It is something that can be learned and modified over time, and really leveraged for your own personal development and professional development.
It's a really good point, and it's something you can almost forget meeting to meeting. From when you're attending a meeting to chairing a meeting, your approach should be similar. But sometimes when you're chairing a meeting, you forget that your job today is to listen. So it's an interesting perspective. Mimi, any skill that you think that's made you successful specifically?
So it's funny that Stuart said that, because that's the same one that I was going to go with the emotional intelligence. Because in early childhood education, just understanding and managing both our own emotions and those of the children that we work with is critical and crucial. Children are highly perceptive, and the ability to remain calm, empathetic, and supportive in challenging situations help create a nurturing and safe environment for them to thrive. They just want to be heard. They want to feel validated. Same thing with their families when you're working with them. Same thing with coworkers and whatnot. So I would say this is one of the most important skills really to have.
Before we end this week's episode, Stuart, any last thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think, for me, Mimi is a shining example of a program coordinator that's working within our organization to help develop and support our program, the early childhood education program. And we look for that leadership in our program coordinators, and work closely with them to ensure the program is supportive of the needs of the community and the needs of the student and the needs of the instructor, because being an instructor is a tough job, and I think people underestimate the skills sometimes that it takes to teach somebody something rather than just tell them how to do it. So just want to say thank you to Mimi for the role you play within our organization.
It's an honor.
I appreciate both of your time today. I appreciate your passion. I have to offer a special thanks to Stuart, who's been a very helpful ally for me as I've taken on this role and to learn the sector, and has been a good supporter of the entire sector of regulated career colleges in Canada. But I appreciate both of you giving us the time today to talk about what you do, and hopefully our listeners have left with a bit of better understanding what it means to be a student at a regulated career college, but also to be someone looking at becoming an ECA or an ECE, and how rewarding a career that can be. So with that, we'll leave it for this week's episode, and we thank you all for listening. We thank our guests for joining us, and we look forward to producing another podcast out for you all to listen to next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to another episode of the EdUp Canada podcast. We release new episodes regularly, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when they are officially out. If you love this episode, please leave a 4 or 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts, so that others can also discover how a set of skills can lead to success. Thanks for learning with us.